everyone, and welcome back to the Atlantic Front. I am the Jakeman, and we are going to do a quick video on some of the new model readings, the GFS, the Euro, and the Canadian, and I wanted to show you a couple of different things as far as the model guidance and how it is starting to become much more uniform. We are sitting around just shy of noon on Monday, so this is about 2 days out, and usually you'll see a pretty good forecast. Now, what I'm doing is not forecasting, this is just model guidance, but you'll start to see this on your phone, you'll start to see this on television, and of course the meteorologists and experts will start to come in with their, say, 48-hour out. So a lot still has to change. I'm showing you the current radar in the greater United States, lower 48. Notice that the storm has not formed. So the storm is going to form in and around the Gulf of Mexico, and it's going to shoot up, kind of form, and then create itself or start to interact with the cold front. And I've made a graphic here for you. So before we get into the model guidance, if you notice, the blue line here is straight on the cold front that's pushing down. So as you can see, it's coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, this area here, and then it starts to move. Well, it's tracking, if you remember the last storm that came through and really broke all the records in New Orleans and Houston and the panhandle of Florida into Alabama, Georgia, all of this was just crunched on with snow. The track took more of the third here, so I'm showing you the third track there, so it was a little bit further south. So that made the Charlotte area with a lot less snow and precipitation. Cold was there, but it did not do anything to show any real wintry precip. So when I was thinking about all of this, I thought that this was more of going to be the track, which was the number 2 track, and it was just too far south of Charlotte, but it did make that arcing lower southeasterly flow, and then it shot up the coast like this, but stayed out and became a pretty big low, which was really interesting how it happened. But that's how and the slow moving side of it ended up becoming really very interesting. So right now in the model guidance, the northwesterly flow of all this, one is out. One is not going to be the case. So this one is already an X mark. Okay, this one's already out. I say that because it's going to stay further south. So one of these two tracks. Now, why does this mean anything to anybody? Well, the difference of, let's say, 500 miles of a system that's the size of Texas, if you're looking at this just from a 250 to 400 mile disparate or difference, you're going to see that third level is going to be coming. It's just going to be a rainmaker for most of Georgia and New Orleans, Alabama, and most of South Carolina. But when we look at the tracks, we'll see exactly what is going to show up. Let's look at some uniformity here. The GFS is coming in. So the 12Z is the most recent one that we can do. It's still even running. As you can see, it still hasn't gone through all of its run there. So we're going to get a little bit into March as well too. But we'll do that for another video. Now, the GFS has been much drier and also much less energy and or precipitation. So it's been less snowy, less everything until this run. So let's take a look. The GFS runs in. So our maker is right here. And I wanted to show you, and I'm going to keep using this as an example because this is where it keeps forming. Again, we're looking for uniformity. That's our low right there. That's where it forms. So I'm going to show you where the cold runs. And you can see how the blue is like this. But look at that. That's where the cold is. So just in that I-40 corridor in North Carolina into Tennessee, just like that. Now, again, the GFS has had this cold really in play. The amount of precipitation wasn't there, and now we're seeing it in this run. So I wanted to show you that and then what the next run looks like. So this is around 1 a.m. on the 19th. So right around 7 a.m. on Wednesday, the 19th, you're talking about Tennessee in a full blizzard type. And notice that the freezing rain, sleet line, and ice line is almost not even there right now. So that's very good because we do not need an ice storm. Now, the pinks and the oranges and all the different colors minus the blue and the green are going to show some type of frozen precipitation. At this point, we're going to see frozen precipitation in the southeast. It's going to happen. The setup is already there. We're already in a lot of agreement. And at this point, it's showing up. So there is the next run. This is about 1 p.m. on February. Notice, since the 12Z is still not as jumps in there. So my thought process is that this is going to push like this, probably around in this area, western North Carolina, upstate of South Carolina, North Georgia, probably around the 10 a.m., 10, 11 a.m. Even though it does jump like that, it does show that it is coming in. Now, that is a pretty long time for then eastern Tennessee also is going to get nailed. So this pink here out there is now southeast and just south. Looks like Raleigh's going to stick around and get almost an all snow event. The Charlotte area is going to get a good mix of snow. And again, the GFS was the least snowy. So they were even saying that line was going to be mostly just a mix. So now you have the GFS saying that it's going to be either snow or sleet, and then of course going into freezing rain, and then it moves. But then at the tail end, and the GFS really wasn't saying a lot of this. They were saying that wraparound back end was going to be more in the mountains, but this comes in and really does just dump in the latter half of where that low went. Notice the tracking. So remember how I showed everything was going like this? Was that track? Well, look at this. At the end, it even takes a dive upwards like that. So it stays like this and moves up into it, which then gives it that flow that comes off of the ocean like that. And then once it does that, it brings in all that moisture. So it might have had a problem here, sitting out here, not being able to push. But once it got out over the ocean, everything started to kind of push back in here. So one more run here, and let's see here. And then one more tick here. I want to show you the back end. Look, so I'm keeping up those green things because you're seeing that wrap around. Watch what happens. More of that energy dives down. Look how cold that line goes. That cold line goes like this now. So that the freezing air stays now south. That's a terrible line. Let's try that better here. So it comes all the way down like this. That's Columbia, South Carolina that's going over. And this is all South Charlotte and then into the mountains in the upstate of South Carolina. So you're seeing a lot of that. So that wraparound continues forward. And then it even comes out more like that. So just enough of that. Now, the GFS just allowed this to happen in their runs. The Euro has been saying this, and the Canadian has been saying it since the beginning. So let's take a look at the Euro. Herein lies the creation of our storm, and there's where it is. Again, same model guidance, same model uniformity. So again, as we get closer to this, the lines come down kind of like hurricane tracking. Everything, all of the cone of agreement comes back in together. So that's what it looks like. The Euro has stayed relatively snowy. So what does that mean? Let's watch this form. The Euro is a little bit less on the amount of precipitation. It does say that there is a large amount of instability in the air, but that cold air plunges down below. So this is a full load on the 06Z. So right around, let's say 10 a.m. on the 19th. So 2 days from now, around 10 a.m., you're starting to see that precipitation. Now the Euro, which has again been tremendously snowy, is now saying that a lot of that drier air is coming in and shooting down like this. All right. So that's that drier air. So when the drier air comes down, we saw this, the last setup for North Carolina and South Carolina when the drier air came straight down, and then the system itself didn't have enough juice. So the dry air pushed this way and kept everything in that southern side. So that was what ended up happening there. So one more jump here and there. So they're saying right around 1 p.m. Again, uniformity. Now the GFS is caught up. Almost no ice and freezing rain at the beginning. So the frontogenesis pushes through the southeast as a snow event and or rain. Very good news. The next jump is still in that snowy range. So Charlotte will get a good blast of snow from, I'd say, 11 a.m. through probably 4 p.m. And that is a day event, which is weird. So the warmest part of the 19th is going to be at midnight, and then this massive cold plunge is going to take over and give us the setup for the cold air to meet with this system. Then the Euro, watch the trailing end. There you see it creating again. So the system itself went out to sea. And then watch that cold air plunges down way into Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, and then it shoots down, and then we get another push, I would say, from 7 a.m. on the 20th, and then all the way to 10 a.m. on the 20th, that you see that. So you see almost a 2-day event with the Euro. The first one's going to be, I'd say, probably about 2 inches-ish, depending on the area, as far as the Euro is concerned, and maybe another ½ inch the next day so that wrap around, so that storm that decides to just jump around like this, all that energy collected. So the Euro says yes. Let's look and see what the Canadian is. So same setup for the Canadian. They've had a very cold plunge, almost a polar vortex, for the last 36 to 48 hours that I've been watching this with some level of intensity. Same setup. Our low pressure comes out off of the Gulf, and then you see a pretty good push from, and this is the 12Z of the Canadian. So a pretty good setup as far as this one has a little bit more sleet and a little bit more but no ice and no freezing rain, just more sleet and snow. So all of the models have gone more into a snowy event versus an icy event, and that's just this last run. So this is the Canadian coming in right around the 1 p.m. on February 19th, so Wednesday 1 p.m. If you are on the roads at Wednesday in any of these areas, if you're on the roads at 1 p.m., you're going to see some level of winter precipitation. And at this point, they're saying it's going to be more snow. The Canadian agrees and says that it's going to be a 1 p.m. event, a little bit of drier air in that push, but then becomes almost completely snow at the tail end. But look at how long that would be there, from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. before it starts to come out. So the Canadian, again, has been very, very snowy, probably thinking more in the 3 to 4 inch range in the Charlotte area, probably down into Chester, as far as the, rain snow line. So the rain snow line that usually is Charlotte moves down into the Rock Hill, probably in between Rock Hill and Chester. And then you see the wraparound, which is more of starts as a mountain event and then moves. And then all of a sudden on the 7 a.m. on the 20th, you now see another amount of snow that comes in, or another system off of that wraparound that comes through, just like this. Again, all of the models are starting to say the same relative story. And that story is we're getting snow between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m.-ish on Wednesday, and then the Wednesday night into Thursday morning, another wraparound amount of energy that we do see in southern storms that comes around and also dumps onto the southeast. During the last video, I showed you the temperature anomaly, which shows you the difference between what is normal versus our averages. And last time I showed you that this line, if you notice this line here, how the line moves, well, this is now this is today, and watch how this warmer air does not come into the southeast. Like the last video, it showed this wedge that came through, and when it walked through, actually I can show you what it looked like. But when that wedge came through, it took away a lot of the uniformity and model guidance, because that snow line was then split right on Charlotte again. So watch what happens. So all of a sudden, from the Monday today all the way through, no warm temperatures move through here. None. Zero. It does not. It tries to make a little push around Wednesday, but it does not. So the cold air setup is still there. And not only is it set up, so there's that Wednesday 19th. It looks like that warmer push is closer to the coast, and we then stay in the southeast much colder. So Wednesday around 10 a.m. 19th, this is when that system comes through, and look at that cold air setting up. Watch how cold it gets down here. That is where it's at. So Thursday, February 20th, Wednesday 19th, that wedge does not come through close enough. Oh, it gets close, but it doesn't touch Charlotte. It doesn't touch, it skirts Columbia. It goes into the Wrightsville, Wilmington area. It does touch Atlanta, which is probably the reason why Atlanta is not going to have anything. So this is probably the most telling one right here. Wednesday, 1 p.m. This is that time frame when the system comes through. So you see that low. That low is right here. So the wraparound snow is going to come in because of all of this cold, cold air. That means we're looking at this type. This is now the line. And on the last video, the line was more like, and I'll show you what the last video looked like. So that's where it is right here. So if this system comes in like this, all right, and it moves like that, then the system is staying like this. And then the cold air is shooting down like this all the way down into the southeast, right around that time, 1 p.m., February 19th. There it is, folks. That's where it is. So that system comes in. And once that happens, then you have a setup that is a perfect chance, snow chance for the southeast to really get a good amount of snow. I would say probably anywhere from 2 to 3. So, 2 to 3 inches. In the Charlotte area, Raleigh could get really wrecked with some things too. So you just don't know. During the last video, the cold air came all the way down like that, or the temperature anomaly, as far as the disparate between the averages, it came like this, and the line was more like up here and did that. That's where it was. So the warm air lost its ability to ridge and wedge and push out all of that, leaving more of an opportunity for this to come through and hit right there, kind of a bullseye type of a thing in that area, in that southeast area. So I wanted to show you the difference just between the 2 days that I did, as far as even the temperature change coming down. I'd say maybe even -3 to -5 degrees normal. I certainly hope you have enjoyed it. I know I have. So we're going to continue to watch these models. We still have a couple of days, but things are starting to agree. Come back to the Atlantic front. We'll see you next time.